Hello and welcome to episode number 96 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeart Radio, charging along up to episode 100 in a couple of weeks, and I am very excited for that. This is Jason Finelli, the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. Happy to be here on another week of big gaming news. Really busy day, especially towards the end of the week here. Wednesday and Thursday have been flying with news across esports and games, and I'm going to try and cover as much of it as I can for you in this episode today. And that will start, as always, with the 6 in 60 seconds. The New York Subliners win the Call of Duty League Pro-Am, defeating the LA Thieves 3-1 in the grand finals and claiming the $100,000 top prize. Early results from the League of Legends mid-season invitational includes 3 undefeated teams, Korea's T1, China's Royal Never Give Up, and Europe's G2 Esports, while North America's Evil Geniuses are 2-2. The Halo Championship Series has announced the dates and locations for both its Orlando Major, September 23rd to 25th at the Orange County Convention Center, and the World Championships, October 20th to 23 at Washington State Convention Center in Seattle. Meanwhile, Bethesda has announced delays of both Starfield from Skyrim developer Bethesda Game Studios and Arcane's Redfall to 2023. A new Nintendo Indie World presentation aired Wednesday, featuring Another Crab's Treasure from Aggro Crab, Gunbrella from the creators of Gato Roboto, and more. And finally, in a Devs vs. Pros video uploaded to YouTube, WB announced that Multiverses, the free-to-play platform fighter coming out this year, is bringing 2v2 matchups and a $100,000 prize pool to EVO 2022 in Las Vegas in August. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. Yes, folks, those are your 6 in 60 seconds for the week. The delay of Starfield and Redfall to 2023 being surprising but not shocking. Like, there's always, in this current gaming industry that we live in, post-pandemic or pre-post-pandemic, whatever you want to call it, it's a weird time. Game releases are fraught, and any solid release date is always to be taken with a grain of salt. But we are going to talk about the Overwatch League. Week 1 is over. The Western Conference teams played a full slate of matches over the weekend from Thursday until Sunday with some very surprising results, which is even more shocking considering with all the unknown factors going into the beginning of this league. Overwatch 2 in beta, 5-on-5, changes to the meta. We didn't know what to expect, and we still were surprised. And joining me to talk about this first week of the season, my Overwatch League correspondent. You heard him a lot last year, and he will be back again this year to talk some Overwatch. This is Will English IV. Will, how are you, sir?
I am fantastic. We are getting into summertime shot here in Chicago, and speaking of surprising, yes, like everybody was waiting for the start of the Overwatch League. We didn't know any kind of dates for the past 3 months, so we were starved for information. Not even the pros knew when the league was going to start, when the Overwatch 2 beta was going to come out, and so now we finally have some information to work off of. And as you mentioned, it's just like take everything you know about the Overwatch League and just flip it upside down. We are in the Twilight Zone here, ladies and gentlemen.
It is a strange time. My predictions were Bubkiss. I went to the Pick'em for week 1, the Overwatch League Pick'em, pick'em.overwatchleague.com, scored 10 points, and at least 9 of the matchups I got 0 points, so that's who you trust with your Overwatch League information, folks. My predictions were absolute bunk. I hope, Will, yours were better.
No, actually they weren't. And again, again, speaking of flipping your expectations upside down, there were teams that you were expected to do well based on past year's performance. But you have to understand, this is a new game, it's a new meta, and the beta was available to everyone at the same time, including the pro league teams, right? So like you imagine that, like, okay, you'd have some time to practice, or maybe some pedigree would come over from the different game. But you have to understand too that Overwatch 2 is 5v5, and you only have one tank this time, and there have been some changes. Doomfist is now a tank now. So Doomfist used to be a DPS character, and now he's a tank. And so some teams were very creative with that notion to kind of switch roles and play the Doomfist like a DPS character, except he has tank qualities. But needless to say, I'm not surprised that your picks went away. I also can give you some like live information from the actual Battle for Texas itself, which is the Houston Outlaws versus the Dallas Fuel on Friday or last Friday. It was more of a like, I actually talked to the president of Overwatch League, or whatever his role is, Sean Miller, and he even said to me that the Dallas Fuel was going to go 3-1, and everybody in the room said, Dallas Fuel 3-1. And what happened? The Houston Outlaws went 3-0 against the Dallas Fuel in front of their home crowd in San Antonio, Texas. And so, I mean, you can call it luck, you can call it whatever, but I'm calling it like domination.
Yeah, it definitely was domination. Go back and watch that match. Dallas had no answer for anything that Houston put in front of them. Speaking of the Battle for Texas, you were there in the trenches, San Antonio, Texas. What was it like getting back to a live crowd? Was the energy there? Were people excited to be there? Tell me about. Give me your post game from the floor. How was it?
Well, I will say that, like, I was a little bit skeptical at first because they opened the doors early. The event didn't sell out like other events, like the Battle for Texas back in Dallas, or back at Arlington, Texas, I should say, at Esports Stadium, like sold out like almost immediately. And so we were kind of concerned. And then they opened the doors early for people to play the beta early on Overwatch 2. So I got there on time. Like, I got there like 1:30 in the afternoon, and it was a little bit dead inside, and no one was really interested in watching the match. But I will say there was a bus of Dallas Fuel fans that drove 5.5 hours from Dallas to come to the show. There was all the Houston Outlaw fans and stuff like that as well. I met some folks at the airport. We all traveled down together. And as the match got started, it was a madhouse in there. And there were the cheers, there were the jaunts, they were going back and forth. I mean, anytime Houston made a play. And so the Dallas Fuel fans were a little bit loud at the beginning, but when they started losing, they got like all silent. But it was absolutely amazing. Again, all the reps from Blizzard were there. Esports Engine was there as well. They had vendor booths, they had food, and like this arena, the Techport arena was like, it just opened up just like maybe a month beforehand. So it was kind of a miracle that we were even there. But for this kind of event, I mean, like Bleak Forte came out and he was a host during the show, and so like that was like nostalgia from last year. So it was great though. It was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to the next. So the Kickoff Clash is the current tournament season right now, sure. And like that event's going to be happening in a couple weeks in Arlington, Texas, back at Esports Arena, or Esports Stadium, I should say. But for now, it just gave me hope that, like, okay, despite everything that's happened in the past 6 months, related to Blizzard and the Overwatch League and everything else, and the kind of the beta was still alive and well, and people were engaged, and it was a lot of fun. It was just. If you imagine this match was happening every single time, and then the homestands were back, this is the kind of energy you want to get yourself to, or get yourself close to.
Yes, they definitely set a very high bar. At least watching from my home, they were certainly loud at some points, and certainly it was nice to hear that rush of a live crowd again. I will say that. So let's talk about the entire week one standings here. Some surprising teams at the top of the list here, even though they, I guess, shouldn't. Like, I should be used to seeing them at the top of the board, and that would be the San Francisco Shock. 2 3-0s over the weekend, going to 6-0 with that +6 differential. Top of the pack, and there's no tiebreaker because they have the differential. Are you surprised, even with all the turmoil, off-season turmoil and overhaul, that they are still on top, or are they just taking advantage of the new environment to basically be at step one like everybody else?
Yeah, I get. It's really hard to measure. You're right. I mean, considering what is the identity of the Shock right now? Super is retired. Moth is gone. You know, every the identity of the team is kind of changed. Like the Shock being on top is just like it's week one, and that's what I'm going to call it right now. It's just like this is like 2 weeks of practice on the Overwatch 2. Here's the showcase for the first week of the Overwatch League, right? And you imagine in any other scenario this would be a problem, but this is also part of esports is adapting to new situations, right? So like sure. Adaptation is going to be so. I would say that the Shock are lucky right now, right? But like we'll see as time goes on. But let's not just talk about the Shock. Let's just talk about again Houston Outlaws being up top. Let's talk about the Atlanta Reign trying to continue their championship ways, because they were in the grand finals last time and they're 2-0 as well. Yep. The Gladiators are up there, right? Like these are teams that you don't expect to see in the top rankings and not doing so well, and a combination of factors has led them to the results. But again, I like. If this is the same thing in week 2, then I'll start believing it a little bit more. But like right now, I'm like, no, this is just week 1 jitters. Somebody's gonna figure it out. It's only enough information, and teams are still figuring out the meta. Teams are still figuring out strategies in this new world, and like the new push mode and everything else. And so like I don't believe it yet. Just yet. I'm not a believer just yet. I'm a believer of miracles, but I'm not a believer in the Shock right now.
See, okay, that makes sense. Just waiting for people to adapt to the meta and maybe knock them off their perch. That makes perfect sense. I have a soft spot personally for the LA Gladiators. A, because Funny Astro was there, and B, I believe they signed the highest profile player from the Valorant scene. I think
Patafan. Patafan. He's back. Yeah. So he was an Overwatch League player, and then he went to Valorant, and then he came back. So that's kind of cool.
So do you think that extra Valorant time helped him out, or is it just a matter of he's getting back on a bicycle?
I mean, I think he's getting back on a bicycle. Also, I forgot to mention about the San Francisco Shock that one of the things that happened in the offseason for the Shock is that most of the Illinois Illinois State University, so I call them the ISU Redbirds, and they're in my home state. But they had 4 out of their 6 roster for the Overwatch 1 team, their contenders team, make it into the league. And so there are players that are spread across these different teams. There's one guy on the Florida Mayhem, but Sam is DPS. He's on the San Francisco Shock, and there's another guy I think that's on Boston. But the idea is Patafan coming back was really, really cool, but for me, it's like seeing some of the names that I saw in the amateur ranks last season, now playing for Overwatch League teams in Overwatch 2, it was just amazing to me. It's just like I wanted to see how they're going to turn out, because we knew back then that there was going to be Overwatch 2. We just didn't know what it was going to look like. But it's nice to see them succeed. But yeah, Patafan, coming back is I think is a huge plus for them, right? And obviously he was good enough to make it in the Valorant ranks, and then it's just getting back on the bicycles because he's more familiar. But maybe he has more aim, more trigger discipline. I mean, I don't know yet, but we'll see the results. But obviously, it's working for the Gladiators because they're 2-0 right now, and they're holding strong.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the players go from one esport to another. In this case, go to one, play one, go to another, and then come back and still see some success for the LA Gladiators there. So we've talked about the teams that are at the top of the list: San Francisco, Atlanta, LAG. Do you have any teams that are at the bottom and you're like, what is going on here? I expected more from you. I know that you're an NYXL guy. New York Excelsior are your team. So to see them at the bottom of the table is probably killing you at the moment.
And newcomers to the West, they switched leagues, so they were in the East last season, and now they're in the West, and 0-2 was not what I was expecting, right? I mean, a close second to that is Dallas Field losing that first match against Houston, and just like they had no answer, like I had nothing, right? But definitely NYXL with their star-studded roster that they have, it's like down 0-2, like again, this is just week 1, and I'm hoping that it's going to change. It's just going to even out a little bit. And I also don't I haven't seen the qualifiers for the tournaments just yet, like how they're going to do it this time around with more teams in the West. So I mean, every game is going to count, and so I just imagine in a last place scenario, right? Like in last year's scenario with the qualifiers, you lose one game, you're basically almost statistically out of the playoffs, right? Or the playoffs for a kickoff clash. But it may change. I don't know, but we'll I'll have to do some research on that. But yeah, no, I'm definitely very upset that NYXL is at the bottom. I'm definitely shocked, to coin a phrase, that the Dallas Fuel lost that first game, considering the strength of their team, their squad, and everything else. It just, I'm shocked, and so we'll see if they can turn it around. They did win their next game, and then Houston lost their next game. So like I'm happy about that that'll even out. And also too like I also thought that like Boston, considering some of the pickups that they got, I mean they picked up a couple folks from the Houston roster and everything else. Like I figured they would be an uprising as well, but just like them down in the rankings as well. They're 1-1, but just like they're kind of all the way at the bottom, like map differential. So it's just like I'm very shocked about that. But again, this is all week one. And I'm hoping that things will even out and that I have a better confidence as to how to judge and score these kind of things based on rosters and setups. But we'll see. It's time will tell.
Yeah, it's it has been a very interesting first week, but as you've been saying over and over again, it's week one, so we don't know. There's still way too many things on the table to know exactly what to expect. But and even a team like you said, Dallas, they got swept 3-0, but then immediately swept the Justice. They made up for it.
Yeah,
any team in the league can do that on any given week. So a team that's 0-2 right now could go 6-0 in week 2, and I'm really just saying that so that it puts that idea in your head. And NYXL goes they have.
I see what you did there.
They have Vancouver and they have San Francisco. So we'll see. Good luck there. But all right, so we got a full slate of matches coming up again this week. I'm just going to let's do some rapid fire results. Who you think's going to win, and you can give me your map differentials if you like. You don't have to do that. Here we go. First match, 3:00 Friday. Vancouver and Florida.
I'm gonna and this is me with very limited information, but I'm gonna stick with Florida. And I think it's probably gonna be a 3-1.
3-1 Florida. Houston and San Francisco. 4-3.
I'm saying San Francisco shock 3-0.
3-0. Oh dear. So Houston's a fluke at this point? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I'm going to call it right now, and until I see something different.
There are some Outlaw fans who are not very happy with you right now.
I know they weren't happy with me being in San Antonio, but I didn't care. I wore my Dallas Field jersey in front of them.
Washington and Atlanta, 6:00 Friday.
I'm going to say Atlanta, but it's going to be pretty close. I'm going to say 3-2, but it's probably going to be very close.
3-2, okay. Saturday, 3:00, Boston, London.
I mean, it's going to be battle. It's almost like a toilet bowl at this point. So I'm going to say Boston with like again. It's probably going to be 3-1, but it's going to be those matches. Those are going to be very, very close. It's kind of like London Spitfire, another disappointing team just from what I saw so far on Friday.
Well, they were last year too. They were not. They're just continuing the disappointment trend.
Yeah, I guess so.
L.A. Gladiators, Dallas Fuel, 4:30 Saturday.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the Dallas Fuel again. I'm gonna say 3-2 Dallas. But I think it's gonna be close. I mean, I know the Gladiators are hot right now, but we'll see week 2.
I feel like this one will be close with good play as opposed to Boston London, which will be close with middling play. Right.
Right. Fair enough.
New York Excelsior, Vancouver Titans, 6:00 Saturday.
Unfortunately, until NYXL shows me something different, I'm gonna have to go with Vancouver. And as the words escape my lips, I don't want to say it out loud. It's just like I think it's gonna be 3-1.
All right, and then Sunday, 3:00, Florida, Houston.
All right, I think this is gonna be more middle of the pack. So I'll side with Houston just this once and just see how it pans out. But I think it's gonna be 3-1 Houston on that matchup.
3-1 Houston. 4:30, New York and San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco all the way.
3-0?
Yeah.
And then finally, Toronto and Paris, 6:00 on Sunday afternoon.
So I'm going to go with Toronto, actually, on this one. I think it's going to be a 3-1 Toronto, and we'll see how it pans out.
Toronto went 1-1 in week 1, losing 3-1 to the Justice and winning 3-2 against Houston, as we mentioned earlier. Yeah. So, they're another middle-of-the-pack team that should be a lot better than they actually play. And maybe I'm just saying that because they have a lot of ex-Fusion players. But, or at least they did. They don't really much anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. I was going to say, hold on about that.
They just have Hisu now, right? That's it. So cool. All right. That is the week 1 slate, week 2 preview. So if there's one thing to take away from this first week, other than nothing, because everything's still up in the air because of the beta, I guess what I ask you is, how do you find Overwatch 2 compared to Overwatch 1 as in viewers esport, from the perspective of you sitting at your computer, or in your case, sitting in San Antonio at a live event, watching Overwatch 2? I find it to be a much cleaner, more easily absorbed experience. I feel like the HUD, while some may call it more boring than the first game, and I would agree with that, comes across much better in the live broadcast, and it makes the entire thing better. Would you agree with that, or are you still on the fence?
So I'm like leaning towards that this is a good thing. This is a good change. I will say that I have some personal bias that I have to acknowledge, is that I'm a tank player and I'm Zarya main on Overwatch, and so like, you know, my role has basically changed inside the game, and also too from like early like watching it from a like analytical standpoint, it's just like it's tough for a support player in the game, and so like I'm watching it from this like analytical, like I'm playing the game and I'm working with it. But as far as like an audience, like explaining it to an audience, I think it's a lot cleaner for that. I think it works very, very well for explaining it to an audience, and then you don't have this like it's more controlled chaos than Overwatch 1 will ever be, right? Because of being 5v5. It just and then most of the plays that are going around are just running off the tank. So you imagine like a hockey game or something like that. I mean, I know hockey has more players on the ice, but just like, you know, you have your captain and you're making your plays off your captain and your assistants. So like that tank role has become very, very important. And so I imagine like now you can talk about like, you know, like you can talk about with actual sports analogies, and most of the plays were made or make or break on, you know, on the tank play from each of these teams, and then Houston taking advantage of the Doomfist switch, for example. So I think it's changed for the better. The only other thing too is that I hope that they fix some of the broadcast issues, because there was some stutter, like there was like some actual live stuttering in the arena. So like I hope they work that stuff out. But outside of that, I mean, I think it's a bright future for Overwatch 2, and then we also map 4 was the new push type. I think we only got to saw one match on Friday with the new push mechanic, and so I wanted to see more about that. I wanted to get to know more about it because we haven't had a chance to play it, and so I'm looking forward to that as well, to see how that meets out as far as meta and strategy and everything else.
Yeah, I really expected more push in general. Like I had a feeling that they would front load with push mode so people could see it.
I thought so too.
But no, they really did a good job of keeping it quote unquote fair, so that it was a normal cadence of game modes throughout. I did appreciate that too, as much as surprised as I was that we didn't see a lot of push. So I am with you on that. So the Overwatch League motor's on, and we will have Will English back again to talk about all the things in Overwatch League. I love your analysis, love your insight, love your firsthand experience being there in Battle of Texas. If the Fusion ever come back to a live show in Philadelphia, would love to do this face to face.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
do it live.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live. So, Will, thank you as always for your time. Very much appreciated, and hope to talk to you soon. Thanks, pal.
Yeah, 'tis the season. Thank you so much, man. Talk to you soon.
'Tis the season indeed. Coming up next, we'll talk more about Xbox in 2022 and where they go now after those delays. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 96. My thanks once again to Will English IV for joining me to talk about Overwatch. I did it again. Overwatch League Week 1. It's not Overwatch League, sir. I love his analysis. I love how excited he gets about the Overwatch League. He is a fantastic resource for all things Overwatch. Make sure you follow him at Will English IV on Twitter to get more insights and more behind-the-scenes stuff whenever he's on the scene. He's not just an Overwatch League guy, by the way. I actually met him at Summer Jam, Big E Gaming. He was doing some tournament organizing for fighting games. The man is everywhere. So make sure you check him out at Will English IV on Twitter. But moving on to our second topic of the evening, I want to go back to a story that was mentioned in the 6 and 60 seconds. That is the delays from Xbox that happened earlier this week, both Starfield and Redfall. So Starfield was the next game from the studio behind Skyrim, so there's a lot of hype behind that, and it's the studio's first original IP in nearly 30 years. I think when it was first announced, it was 25 years. That was last year, so I guess 26 years now. But it's got a lot of hype behind it. A lot of people are very excited about this game. But now it slips out of its 11/11/22 launch date into 2023, as does Arcane's Redfall, which is a 4-player multiplayer first-person shooter game where you're fighting against vampires and each of your characters have crazy powers. This one is less surprising that it was delayed because we have not seen a single thing about it since that original reveal at the end of the Xbox 2021 E3 showcase, and it was slated to come out in summer 2022, which is a month away. So the fact that we haven't heard anything about that game, that delay does not sting quite as hard. Admittedly, it is the one of the two games that I'm a little more excited for, just because as much as I like to play Bethesda Game Studio games like Skyrim and Fallout, I tend to not finish them. Hoping Starfield is different, but we will see when that game does launch in 2023. But with those two delays comes an interesting question. What then is left for Xbox in 2022? They were two huge first-party games. Now, again, Redfall falling to 2023, not a big deal. But Starfield was set in stone. That game had a firm release date. They basically released an entire teaser trailer around that release date with the guy on the spaceship pressing all the buttons and all of a sudden 11-11-22 appear on the screen. So what do they do now? What kind of games can we look forward to coming up at the end of the year in the holiday season? And furthermore, what are they going to talk about at the upcoming Xbox Showcase on June the 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time? It's an interesting question, and I think the more I think about it, the more I think they're actually a company that can survive something like this, more so than a Nintendo or a Sony. So if God of War Ragnarok, for example, were to be delayed into 2023 also, I think then that would be super devastating for Sony. I can't imagine the pressure that Santa Monica Studio and Cory Barlog, I can never remember, Cory Barlog, are putting on themselves to get that game out by the end of this year, just because of how pivotal that game is going to be to the company's bottom line in the fiscal year. Now, then again, fiscal year could reach out into January, February, March, which is technically 2023, so they have a little bit of wiggle room there, but I think they want that game out as a big holiday push. Their Black Friday anchor, every company seems to like having a Black Friday anchor, and I think they want God of War to be theirs, partly because again, just like Xbox, they haven't really talked a whole lot about what they have coming down the pipeline, just the number of which they have. I think it was like 25 first-party games being worked on for PlayStation 5 or something like that. So I'm not surprised that God of War would be trying to come out this year, and if there is a delay, they're going to announce it as late as humanly possible. But getting back to Xbox now, it is worth looking into what is coming out for them in 2022, and honestly, there's not a ton. So over on GameSpot, which, disclosure, I do freelance for, Eddie Makuch, one of the editors over there, great editor, in fact. They're all great. I'm not gonna, don't get me wrong. Everybody who works at GameSpot is great to work with, and I'm happy to be there. But Eddie is our news guy, he's our business guy, and he's lightning quick. And he wrote up a little op-ed on after this delay, just talking about the things that are coming potentially for the rest of the year. And he flat out says that as far as confirmed first-party new releases for the remainder of 2022, Xbox has none. There are no official confirmed games coming from Xbox or its studios for the rest of the year. Now, granted, there is a big showcase in June where we might be able to expect that to change, but it's interesting to hear that halfway through the year, one of the big three publishers has no first-party games confirmed, like definite, set in stone, here they come, for the remainder of 2022 at this point. Now, there are some that are expected, like the next Forza game. Forza Horizon did just come out, Forza Horizon 5, but this is the core Forza Motorsport series, which would be Forza 8. It's been 5 years since Forza Motorsport 7 came out, so it's about time that 8 followed it up. So it would not be surprising if Turn 10 Studios was able to turn that out this year. That would be a big one, but racing games are still sort of niche. Forza has a very dedicated fan base, don't get me wrong, but that's not going to be the kind of game that pushes it over the edge as far as like winning the holiday season or whatever you want to say about that. So then Eddie goes on to list a couple of studios and what they're making. Now, there are no confirmed games for 2022, there are confirmed games. Whether one or two of those makes it into the end of the year, we don't know. But there are some games that we know are coming from first-party studios at Xbox that have been announced in some form prior to now. So Obsidian Entertainment has two of them, two RPGs, one a Skyrim-looking game called Avowed, and second, the sequel to The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds 2, in fact, was just like a teaser when it was announced. I don't expect to see that until 2024 at the earliest. So I don't think that's going to be one. Avowed at least had some gameplay at that 2020 E3 conference, or whatever that was called, that showcase. Have not seen anything about it since. That could change this year as well. And Obsidian is also working on Grounded, which kind of, as Eddie mentions, looks like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But that's already out now in beta, and all they could do there is just officially launch it. And I guess that would technically count, but it would leave a bit of a bad taste in the mouths of the Xbox faithful, I believe. Next studio that we know has something coming is the Coalition, which should be working on Gears of War 6. I mean, that makes sense. But I don't expect that to even be mentioned, let alone release this year. I think we have at least another year on that. They did mention that they're shutting down Gears Esports for a time, and they did that with Halo just about when Infinite was ramping up. So who knows? Maybe it could be announced and come out this year. The Coalition is apparently also developing a secret project, but the only thing we know about that at the moment is that it's not a Star Wars game. So Coalition, unless there's some miracle with Gear 6, could end up being quiet this year. Then there's The Initiative, one of the newest studios by Microsoft, which is making a Perfect Dark reboot announced at the Game Awards 2020. That's not making this year because there's some recent turnover in both leadership and development team, so that has stalled a little bit. Not sure what's going on there. Speaking of IP with a tumultuous development, let's talk about Rare and Everwild. I feel like I've been talking about Everwild for literal years, but that keeps, getting upheaved and keeps getting delayed, so we don't know what's going out there. They do still have Sea of Thieves, though. They are supporting Sea of Thieves. That game is really, really coming into its own as far as its user base and its community and stuff like that. That game is a huge, huge win for them. A very good textbook case of a game that launches poorly but eventually recovers and gets to a great spot. So I expect some updates from Sea of Thieves, but nothing on Everwild. I could be wrong there too, though. Playground Games, which makes Forza Horizon. Obviously, Forza Horizon 5 came out. 6, I would not expect until next year or the year after. They are also making, and this is one that I have a hunch that this one's going to surprise us and be an end-of-year 2022 game. The new Fable. We haven't seen a thing about the new Fable since that first teaser at the end of that 2020 showcase. We have not seen a thing about Fable yet. Now, was that because the game was super early in development and it wasn't expected to come out until 2023, 2024? Maybe. However, I just have this weird feeling about this game that we're going to see much more of it at this showcase in June. Call me crazy, call it a weird hunch, but I do expect to see more Fable. And if they snuck a November release date, if they think it's far enough along that it could make a November release date and replace Starfield, that would be awesome. But that remains to be seen. But I think Fable is going to be one that factors into this conversation, as do I think Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. This has never been given a release date, never been given a release window. There's been that gameplay trailer at Game Awards 2021. There's been some other behind-the-scenes footage that's come out, but nothing's set in stone. This is another one that could have a huge blowout in the Xbox showcase and then show up at the end of the year. But I'm less confident about this one for some reason than Fable. Something about this game and just where the trailers have been and all the other footage, I feel like this might be another year out, and that's being generous. I don't think Hellblade 2 is going to be the one to come into the fall of this year, the holiday this year, and give calendar year 2022 a boost. And then finally, as far as first-party studios are concerned, Machine Games, who makes Wolfenstein, did announce that they were making an Indiana Jones game, but there's nothing else about that other than, hey, we're making an Indiana Jones game. So that's where the first-party developers of Xbox sit, and it sounds pretty grim, right? Does not sound great. Obviously, Halo Infinite is still out. It's been a very tumultuous post-launch for Halo Infinite. The multiplayer offerings and the other post-launch content have not been received well by the Halo faithful, which is a shame considering Infinite campaign single player, it launched very well, but since then has really seen some tough times. They keep promising that things are getting better, and the fans still aren't happy. So I don't know what's going on there. There's probably going to be some more updates there too. They're going to need some sort of turnaround to get the fans back on their side, and we'll see what that looks like. And then there are finally a couple of games with third-party studios that they have partnerships with. The Just Cause studio Avalanche has a game called Contraband. We haven't seen much on that yet. And then Ark Survival Evolved 2, starring Vin Diesel, which I believe was also featured at the Game Awards 2021 this past year, is expected to come out this year for Xbox console launch exclusive and listed for 2022. So that's technically a first-party game, even though it's just a console exclusive. It's technically an exclusive, a console exclusive, but other than that, it doesn't really count as far as the whole first-party thing because they're not developing it in-house. Now, if Microsoft said, we're purchasing the studio that makes Ark, that would make sense, but that is... I don't think Microsoft's purchasing anything until the Activision deal either goes through or is blocked. So I don't think that's going to happen. So what do they do? Why would I think, with something that sounds so grim, that they are in a good spot? And I can summarize this entire argument in 2 words. And I think if you're a Microsoft faithful or even a gaming faithful, you know what I'm going to say. Game Pass. Game Pass is their answer. There's 25 million subscribers, according to this piece by Eddie McCouch, and growing. And it's going to grow even further with the rumored release of the standalone Xbox stick, kind of like a Roku stick or an Amazon Fire Stick that you stick into the side of your television. You buy a controller that connects to it via Bluetooth, and voila, you have Game Pass on every single TV you own. And if it's a smart TV already, they're developing the cloud gaming app or the Xbox app for those. So it'll be on Roku, it'll be on Apple TV, it'll be on all those as well. They're coming. Game Pass is going to be gigantic. And if they're banking on the ecosystem to make them a bunch of money, they could certainly do that, but it's going to need games. You can't have delays like this. And their first-party games are either delayed or non-existent. So what do? You break out the checkbook and you start partnering with publishers to get their major releases on Game Pass day one. And I think... now, with these 2 delays, that might be their focus. Do not be surprised if you hear that Game Pass, the words Game Pass Day 1, over and over and over and over and over and over again during this Xbox showcase in June. It's going to happen. I really do think they're going to be going through a lot of partnerships. They're going to be bringing in a lot of games just to be day one Game Pass, even if they also launch on PS5, just to be day one on their ecosystem, I think is going to be huge for them. Now, if I'm looking at the rest of the year at games that I think might be Game Pass day one or could potentially turn into Game Pass day one, that would create a bit of a shake or create a bit of a rock the boat a little bit. Saints Row is one that I think at this point, now it's not there now. It may be a little too late with Saints Row coming out in August, but I could certainly see Saints Row becoming a day one Game Pass game. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's a great way to get people in and to check it out, especially if you're going to put it on your cloud gaming service. So anybody with a backbone or something like that could play it. I think that would make a ton of sense. Whether or not they do it, who knows? But I think announcing Saints Row as a Game Pass day one would be a very, very smart idea. Forspoken is another interesting one, though that one actually is exclusive to PS5, so I take that back. Another one that they might open the checkbook for though I don't know the status of the partnership between these two companies, is Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights on Game Pass day one with 4 friends playing online co-op, or 2 friends playing online co-op, and there's apparently a 4-player mode coming later on, according to the news that dumped this week. That could be one that could be huge for the service. I really do think a Gotham Knights day one Game Pass edition would be gigantic. Now, do I think that's actually going to happen? I'd put it like 20%, like 25%. You know, it's a 1 in 4, 1 in 5, probably lower chance of that happening. But I'm just saying it's one that would make a lot of sense if they were going to open up the checkbook and try to get some exclusivity or day one Game Pass sort of things. Gotham Knights would be one that I would target. Saints Row would be one that I would target. And then there's one more that I think would be an absolute crusher. And I think this one has a decent shot considering current events. I think Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, day one Game Pass, could be a thing. Call me crazy. I'm just hypothesizing here. I don't have any background information. I don't have any insider info. My name is not Jeff Grubb. It's just a hunch that I have that while the companies are still separate, they can organize a agreement to get Modern Warfare 2 Game Pass day one, and they would own the ecosystem as far as Call of Duty Online, because all you have to do is subscribe and you get the full campaign and the full multiplayer. That's not one that I think Activision would do. I think they're going to wait until the merger happens for all of Activision's games to go on the service. But I do think that they could be persuaded, honestly, if the bottom line looks good enough. I think that would be a huge get for Xbox. Just an absolute industry shaker as far as Game Pass day one. To get the Modern Warfare game on their service day one, you know, however many months before, 8 months before they're due to acquire the company anyway, would just be crazy. Now, I imagine there are a lot more hoops to jump through in that regard, just because of, you know, the sale that's going on, and people will want to avoid, like, you know, white collar malfeasance. But I do think that Modern Warfare 2 on the Game Pass service, the new Modern Warfare 2 coming out this year, not the old one, that would be that would be a little backwards. I do think it's possible, and I do think it's something that would really help out Microsoft's current situation. Being that there's not a whole lot going on for the rest of the year, and they need something to do. So something to think about, something to ponder, and something to keep an eye on as Xbox goes through the rest of 2022. Right now, with no first-party games on the schedule, but I imagine that will change come June when Xbox puts on its annual showcase. Coming up after the break, we're going to break down the schedule of Summer Games Done Quick 2022 that was announced this week, and I'll talk about the runs that I am looking forward to the most. Stick around. Alrighty, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 96. Rolling right along here to the final segment of the show. Let's talk about speedruns in what used to be called the speedrun segment of the show. Summer Games Done Quick 2022 released its schedule. Well, the Games Done Quick Foundation released the schedule for Summer Games Done Quick 2022, which will return to a live in-person event starting Sunday, June 26th from Bloomington, Minnesota, where they usually held the live Summer Games Done Quick. Very, very exciting that there will be a live crowd in there again. Live crowds at Games Done Quick have always heightened the experience, in my opinion. So to be able to watch those speed runs with a crowd cheering in the background is super, super cool. And I just wanted to go through the schedule of some of the games that I am looking forward to as I go through it, and what the most exciting, runs to me are going to be going into this new speedrunning marathon, raising money for Doctors Without Borders, or Médecins Sans Frontières, if you are French. So let's go with the very first one, noon on Sunday, June 26th. That's going to kick everything off. Shadow of the Colossus, a boss rush random where they're just going to fight bosses at random. They're not going to go through any specific order. Love that idea. Shadow of the Colossus is a classic. If you have never played it, you should. And they're going to beat every boss in 47 minutes, which is quite a feat. So that's going to be a great run to start us off. And then a couple hours later, Tunic makes its Summer Game or Games Done Quick debut at Summer Games Done Quick, a 35-minute any percent run of Tunic. I imagine that there will be some sort of glitch involved in there because that game is supposedly very long and very difficult. So either this person has just optimized it to the nth degree, or they have some sort of fancy glitch that lets them skip the majority of the game. 3:48 tentatively on that Sunday, the first Mass Effect at any percent run with no Mako glitch. There is a glitch that involves the Mako car, the infamous Mako car from the first Mass Effect. So without that glitch, they're going to beat it within 1 hour and 35 minutes. And then another debut right after that, tentatively scheduled for 6:03 p.m. on Sunday, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the brand new open world Kirby game for Nintendo Switch with a 2-hour par. Interesting that they have already gotten that game down to below 2 hours or 2 hours in general. That's going to be an exciting watch right there. First bonus game of the event is slated for 8/18 if all of the donation incentives are met, and that is the original Pokemon Snap. Love that game. Have not played new Pokemon Snap yet. I really want to do that. But this first Pokemon Snap game is a classic, and they're going to go for 250,000 points in 35 minutes. Moving on to Monday, a lot of classic PC and Super Nintendo and Nintendo games happening in the beginning stages of the day. 6:56 a.m., the original Ninja Gaiden, one of the most infamously difficult games ever made, and this runner is going to beat it within 15 minutes. Right after that, Altered Beast, another very difficult retro game for the Sega Genesis, a co-op between two different runners in less than 8 minutes. That's absurd. Right after that, McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure, which is just funny. I love that that's being speed ran, I guess, at the Games Done Quick event. Under 25 minutes for McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure on the Genesis. Then we get into the 2019 Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, a race between two separate runners, TGH and Glan, listed with a 1 hour and 50-minute par time. I love the races of Games Done Quick. It's one thing to watch one person tear through a game and make you look silly, but to watch them do it together and race at the same time, amazing. Amazing stuff. I can't wait to see that. Bonus game number 2 on Monday is one that I am very interested to see. It's the All Endings run without going out of bounds for Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the new open exploration Five Nights at Freddy's game that came out in December, where you're not just sitting in a room trying not to die by animatronic. You're a little kid walking around a whole pizzaplex, and you can explore and see different things. So they're going to try and beat that game within an hour and 20 minutes, which is pretty crazy. Another debut early Tuesday morning, June 28th, a great retro-style platformer called Infernax will be speed run within an hour and 5 minutes at 5:29 a.m. on Tuesday. Then we go into more classic old-school games, Mega Man Powered Up, the PSP Mega Man game within 36 minutes being played on a PSTV. That's pretty cool. Mega Man the Wily, a whole Mega Man block that actually kicks off. We have Mega Man the Wily Wars, Mega Man 2 versus Mega Man 3. We have Mega Man Extreme versus Mega Man Extreme 2, Mega Man 5, all being played on Tuesday afternoon. And then the big chunk, two big chunks of Tuesday, are being taken up by two huge games. Yakuza Like a Dragon, any percent PS5, that is a 4 hour and 25 minute par. That starts at 2:25 p.m. And then at 9:40 p.m., the primetime run, we have Super Mario Odyssey within 3 hours and 20 minutes, going to the darker side, which is one of the hardest levels in the entire game. That will be a fun one to watch as well. And in between those two are Halo Infinite, all missions within an hour and 25 minutes, not using the special tank gun that somebody found, where if you were able to climb up to a certain place and grab the gun, your normal pistol becomes the same as a Scorpion tank, and you can just blow through the game. And then another bonus game after Halo Infinite, if it meets the donation goal, Half-Life Alyx. VR speed runs. I love it. Within 50 minutes. Would love to see that. That would be super cool. Early in the morning after Super Mario Odyssey, 1:25 a.m. Wednesday, June 29th, Mario Party Mini Game Island, any percent. That will be a unique run, not something we have seen before. Usually Mario Party is considered a communal or multiplayer game with multiple friends. Not here. Here they are going to play it all by themselves on Mini Game Island and try to get through all the mini games in 45 minutes. Later on Wednesday, we have a couple of big names here. Knuckles Chaotix, the old Sega 32X game, beat the game within an hour and 5 minutes. WarioWare touched any percent Wii U Virtual Console in 35 minutes. Pokemon Emerald Randomizer, a co-op between 4 different players. Evolution Chaos co-op, it's called, on a Game Boy player. So Pokemon Emerald with 4 players at once in a randomizer, which means random things happen or items that you receive are given at random and not in the sequence that they are normally programmed into the game. So that will be an interesting one to watch there. And then the prime time on Wednesday, Super Mario Sunshine, 120 shines, all 120 shines for Sunshine played on the Wii within 3 hours and 5 minutes. That will be a very cool run and one to look forward to there on Wednesday night. We are now into Thursday, June 30th, the second half of the Summer Games Done Quick Marathon. Got a couple of weird games going on in the overnight. 2:18, we have one called Deer Simulator, your average everyday deer game. We have a game called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, which is just a great name. I would like to watch that not even being sped run, just would be very funny. King's Quest V, the CD version on PC in 32 minutes. And then we get into some more, known games or newer games. The Torna expansion for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in 2 hours and 55 minutes. Solar Ash, which is a 2021 release, I believe. The true ending there in 1 hour and 10 minutes. Monster Hunter Rise, which is beating Magna Mallow, which is the big bad of Monster Hunter Rise with add-ons for PC, 1 hour and 15 minutes. An exhibition of Step Mania, which will be a lot of fun. A couples expedition with 2 players. And then a bonus game after that, Sound Voltex Exceed Gear, which is another DDR-style rhythm game. But I think you use your hands just like you do with Step Mania. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. What a crazy speed runs in rhythm games are out of this world. I highly recommend you watch every single one of those. And then we are in July the 1st. July the 1st starts in the overnight with 2 big ones. Doom Eternal, 100% on Nightmare within 2 hours. That will be a fun run. And then Control, beating all bosses at Legacy Standard Mode, 1 hour and 35 minutes. So 2 big ones. If you're a night owl on early Friday morning, July the 1st, you can catch those, or you can catch the replays on Games Done Quick's YouTube channel. You can do that for all these, obviously. Another newer game, Poppy Playtime, which has become a huge, TikTok and YouTube game, horror game. 6:19 a.m., an 8-minute run there. And then Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, 24 minutes, 7:39 a.m. Talked about that with Celia Schilling back in December when it launched. The Switch version of Chocobo GP, another new game there, in 45 minutes. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, any percent glitchless, which means not using any glitches, just getting through the game as fast as possible. 3 hour and 45 minute par time, so that will take us into Friday afternoon. But if the donation incentives are met, the 6th bonus game of the run will be another Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl run, and any percent with glitches, which takes the par time from 3 hours and 45 minutes to just 25, which is amazing. I would love to see how that happens, so let's hopefully meet those donation incentives when they happen on July the 1st. Then we have Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo in reverse boss order in 35 minutes. Love that. Another randomizer with co-ops. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for Nintendo 64. 2 players there within 2 hours and 30 minutes. We have Super Mario World Relay Race. 1 hour and 15 minutes there involving 6 different players. And then we are into the final day of the marathon, Sunday, July the 2nd, kicking off with Left 4 Dead, all the all the main campaigns with co-op, 4 players playing together, beating the entire game in 48 minutes. Right after that, we have a Final Fantasy X run, removing the cutscenes, any percent, 4 hour and 8 minute par there. So that's one of the longer runs of the show. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty on PC, European Extreme Mode, considered the hardest Metal Gear setting of all time. 1 hour and 18 minutes there. Another VR, super hot VR within 15 minutes. That'll be fun to watch. All dungeons for The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Man, Saturday is stacked. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, 2 hours and 45 minutes. A Metroid Dread run, any percent normal, 1 hour and 21 minutes there. Super Mario Maker 2 Relay Race, any Super Mario game on Saturday that involves Grand Pooh Bear, Carl Sagan, and those runners are always great, so that will be fun. The final bonus game, the second to last bonus game of the show would be a Super Mario 64 120 star race. So a 100% completion race between 2 different runners within 1 hour and 50 minute par time. That would be awesome. And then the end of the marathon, the featured event, the main event of the entire marathon, a 2-hour run of completing the game with all main bosses defeated in Elden Ring, which will be absolutely bonkers. And then the final bonus game would be another run, but any percent, which means you don't have to beat all the bosses. You can use glitches. You can skip as much as you can, taking that play time from 2 hours to 33 minutes. So Elden Ring, obviously the biggest game on here, the most recent game, I believe. The only one that might be more recent than that is Infernax, but I don't remember exactly when that came out. But that is your schedule, not your full schedule, just the games that stick out to me on the list. Go to gamesdonequick.com/schedule to check those out. If you're interested in going, the gamesdonequick.com website does have information on how you can get out to Minnesota for the week. If you do go, please go. A Games Done Quick event is high on my bucket list, but kind of hard to go to one. Kind of hard to go to this one when the final day of marathons is your wife's birthday. So I have other places to be for this particular one, but I will be watching as much as I can and catching the videos on demand on the Games Done Quick YouTube channel after that. I suggest you do too. And while the marathon is going on, don't forget to donate, because let's not forget, the whole reason they do this is to donate to a great cause in Doctors Without Borders. So if you have some money to spare and you want to throw them a quick donation, that would be awesome. So with that is the end of episode 96 of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to this part right now, that means you've got to the end of the episode, and as I say every week, I wholeheartedly appreciate you joining me for this hour of video game talk and esports talk. I hope you were entertained. I hope you were educated. And above all, I hope you come back for more. We have some big things cooking, I promise you, leading up to that episode 100, which could be, where I sit, a game changer. Don't want to get too excited. It's going to be one of those things where I'm not going to believe it until it happens. But if what I have in the works is coming in episode 100, doctor, it could be one of the biggest interviews I've ever done. And I mean that. So stick around for that. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a I hope you have a great weekend. See, I got myself excited thinking about episode 100. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great week right behind it. And we will be back next week with more of the biggest video game and esports news that the industry has to offer. Also, before I sign off, I do want to extend a wholehearty congratulations to my brother Mike and his soon-to-be wife Devin. I'm recording on Thursday night, the 12th. They are getting married on the 13th. So when this episode goes live, I will be doing wedding things and enjoying their special day. Congratulations to them, and I look forward to the two of you living the rest of your lives in perfect wedded bliss, just like the rest of us. With that is it for me. Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye. See you next week.